Hello, I'm Paul Cunnington. I wanted to let you know about a wonderful event that's going to be on this Saturday, the 25th, and it's going to be with this chap, Doug Dane. He is a coach, he's someone who's coached me, and he does an awful lot of work on mindset, a subject that I know there's a lot of interest in nowadays, particularly for younger people who are struggling, and he is the author of a book called Mistaken Identity. And he does an awful lot of work on helping people. I would describe it as having a false identity, an identity that they've inherited from when they were probably about up to about 6 years old, and from just whatever was around them at the time. And identity is important because it's all about someone's self-image, and self-image is almost like a thermostat within your mind, in that if you want to achieve something and if you have certain perceptions about your self-image, certain patterns that say that you can do certain things or you can't do certain things, you have certain limiting beliefs, then just like a thermostat which will stop, the temperature, nothing will go past that. Well, with the self-image, it's the same. You cannot go past what you believe your own self-image to be, and if you've got a pattern in your mind, our minds are extremely strong. And so Doug does a lot of work to help people remove these patterns, to understand that they have got a false self image, they have got a false identity, and he has a program that he does along with his book of mistaken identity called the Reset Program. And if you come along to the event, you can meet Doug, you can talk to the author himself, you can find out about his book, you can find out about his background. Um, and Doug had a very challenging background, and he talks about how he found a way to get past this these experiences he had as a child. I mean, they're things that he will tell you about, that, and you read about in the book, that you just, it's like something out of a film. Now, it doesn't mean to say that you've got to go through all sorts of trauma in the way that Doug did, because people can still have all sorts of um, childhood experiences, which means that you have these patterns put into place. Now, of course, Doug can explain this much better than I, but if you're interested in this sort of thing, if you feel that you want to work on your mindset, this is a wonderful event. It's going to be in Portobello. I always think Portobello is a wonderful area to go to in Edinburgh anyway. And it's going to be at the Tribe Porty, which is uh, a building that has all sorts of events running there all the time. It's at 19 Windsor Place, Edinburgh, EH15 2AJ. It's the doors will open at 12:30 and it will run until 4 o'clock. Now, Doug's mentioned that it's going to be very, very relaxed. He's pretty much a relaxed, very laid back sort of chap anyway. So, but if you have an interest in these things, this could be a wonderful event for you. It's completely free. So you can just come along and find out all about how Doug and his trainings, and if you wanted to get involved with Doug and you'd like to help him help other people, then there are programs like an advocate program, which he again can tell you about, and his team can tell you about. But I'm an advocate, and Monica is someone who also supports. Monica Godas, who's actually set up the event in Edinburgh, is someone else who supports Doug and supports his work. And it's wonderful that she's been able to put on this event. Janet and I are planning to be there, and we're really looking forward to seeing Doug. And yeah, it's going to be great. A few days ago, I had a few technical difficulties um, trying to do a live with Doug, but I managed to get it. The pictures are a bit, you know, but we managed to get chatting and I managed to record it. So I'm going to play this in a few seconds and then you can hear from Doug. I'm going to put the Eventbrite link for the event from Monica below this, and I'll put some other links of Doug's with some more information about him if you want to check him out a little bit more before you come along. And he's just a really good guy, and he is really approaching things from a different perspective when it comes to helping people who are struggling with their life and their mindset. And again, he's got this big thing, particularly for young people, and he has a daughter who's well into her teens now. I think she's getting to the stage where she's finishing college or something. So, um, young people are very special to him. Anyway, I'm going to play this video, and if there's anything I can do to help you with any information other than the links I share with you, then please feel free to get in contact with me or Monica, and hopefully we'll see you there. Okay, all the best now. Take care. Bye. Good. Right. Now I'm going to check that we're not lopsided or something on the screen. So we're looking, see what we look like.
It's a little wonky, but we're a little skinny.
Really? If I'm looking really skinny, that's great. I think we should use this.
Yeah. It's ours. I think most people will be on their phone anyway, so.
Yeah.
You look great. You look good skinny on the computer. You both look good.
Well, yeah, I'm thinning out. At least on the internet I am anyway. So, right. Now, well, we've got that figured out, sort of. Tell me about why you're on this mission with mistaken identity.
Well, for a few reasons. When I was working on the book, subsequent to the book coming out, I learned about something I never heard of actually, and a lot of people never heard of. They're called ACEs, adverse experiences.
Mm.
And, when it was pretty obvious, but I didn't realize that 6% plus of the adult population have gone through, or of the young adults, children 0 to 17, are going through these adverse experiences, and I went through. It was very severe for me. And I didn't realize that it was such a high number. It really surprised me, but it explained a lot of the conversations I was having with people, because when they got talking to me, we kind of got beyond them kind of pretending that everything was okay, and really earnest to try to help them, whether it was their business or whatever area of life they were trying to succeed in or do better. We get into these conversations, and their mistaken identity. Of course, I was able to see that, but I guess the bottom line is that all these people I've talked to thousands of people, and I spend all my days talking to people, right? And a lot of people were really struggling, and the other thing is where they were turning to for their struggles. So, it's a very popular narrative these days to turn to counseling and therapy, or now, of course, there's very popular alternative therapies, hypnotherapy, Reiki, sacral, craniosacral, or whatever the hell they call it. There's all these therapies and modalities that people turn to with how they're feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, and I found actually that people are trying all these things and nothing's getting better. Things are actually getting worse, and they become more frustrated with themselves. You're the one who has to live with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're disappointed. They're really down. They're hopeless. A lot of people. So personally, I'm on a mission to really disrupt and revolutionize the mental health space, the personal development space for sure. Interview last night in Sweden, and it was a great interview. And they're in the personal development space. I said, man, this was such a refreshing conversation. I'm glad somebody's saying what you're saying. So, just personally, there's so many. Sum it up: 60% of adults go through adverse childhood experiences when they were young, and now they're adult life and their career. And at home, they're raising children that are struggling, and those children go through experiences, and then they have children epidemic. And I got some suicide rates the other day here in Ireland that 60% of suicide call-ins to a suicide hotline, 60 are 25 and younger, and 40% of that 60% are 18 and younger. Like, it's crazy. And I think I just found a really simple way to cure what ails you. And I think we've really gotten lost. And I think all the systems that are in place, they're now big business. And I think the tipping point, there's a razor's edge to that. And yeah, I think the way they're going about trying to deal with their challenges, personal, professional, emotional, I think they're going the wrong route. I think they're led the wrong way.
And yeah, I was, to be honest, I was, as you were talking, I hadn't planned to mention this, but I'm going to, because we live now in the Clyde Valley in Scotland, as you know, and I won't say where Janet and I, my wife and I, used to live about a year ago, and we lived in this lovely little village, and our neighbour sort of ran the local shop and what have you, and we got to know their kids, as you do. We were there for a few years, and then one day I learned that a teenager had committed suicide, and in the village, and it turned out that it was one of the best pals of my next door neighbour's daughter. There was like three girls. They're like the Three Musketeers, and one of them had just gone.
Yeah.
And she was someone who was adopted. She was like you were adopted. And it doesn't mean to say if just because people are adopted, but there may have been, who knows, we don't know what happened, but one minute she was there, the next minute she was gone.
Yep.
And you know, that really, I'll never forget that. And I think to myself how much this book, it's not trying to say the parents are getting it wrong or something, but it's, you've said this to me when you've had me on the course. If we can start to become aware of the programming we've been given as a child, then we can, I mean, what would you describe the first step is to, I mean, I suppose the first step would be to be open to even accept that there might be something we need to work on.
Yeah. Well, I think the first step is you just got to take a look at your life, any area of your life, and if you're struggling emotionally, there's a problem. And generally, if you're struggling emotionally, your emotions are a result of your thinking. So if you're having difficulties, we want to uncover the root cause of your difficulties, not just turn to things that help us cope with our symptoms that come from our difficulties. So the first thing you have to do is, I think everybody needs to understand how you were conditioned and programmed when you were young. Now, most people, if they heard that, they would kind of understand what we're talking about, right? But very few people actually are aware of how that programming created what's called a system of ideas that, as far as you're concerned, are true about you, which personality.
Mm.
I think people are having problems in their life because they have a personality disorder, but not in the way that you hear about. I think there was just a bunch of information that was programmed to you. It created disorder in your own mind, and you weren't really ever to kind of you never really be able to be yourself.
Mm.
You can't be yourself, and you have to pretend to be something you're not. And you're afraid to be yourself because what are people going to think, or am I going to fit in, or am I going to be rejected, or like what's she going to think of me?
Mm.
Then with you have all these questions
Mm.
internally, unconsciously, which creates an inner conflict.
Mm.
So if you have inner conflict that you're carrying around because of what's going on in your life, there's an origin to the original inner conflict. What created the inner conflict?
Mm.
We have to understand how were we basically brought up and what were you brought up to believe
Mm.
and we brought up to agree with as far as what is right and wrong, good and bad, rules, values, all these beliefs
Mm.
that formed this system of ideas. Like here in Ireland, there's a system of ideas that's been passed on generationally through history. And over in Scotland, I didn't realize, but I found out that people from Scotland came to plant in Northern Ireland. And so there's a system of ideas in Scotland. And I'm doing an interview in Sweden in about an hour, and there's a system of ideas with Swedish people, and there's a system of ideas with Polish people. And then within those cultures, drill down to the community, to the family, to what is a husband, father, brother, son supposed to be like? Like, be a man.
Mm.
So we have all ideas, and they were all programmed into us at a very early age, and we weren't really allowed to kind of stand up for ourselves or be ourselves. And we tried, we got pushed down.
Mm.
So we have called a mistaken identity. I think most people are mistaken about how they see themselves, how they feel about themselves, and how they view themselves and estimate their potential.
What is it you think people are feeling when they feel that there's something going on? How do they know that there's something that, that they're not being themselves? What do you think how does it come out in most people? What do they tell you that they're feeling?
Um, I I guess the dialogue or the words I hear a lot would be, um, I just I just can't be me, you know.
Mm.
What else would they say? Well, I get this a lot. I feel like something's missing.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, and they're looking for something, and I usually find out there's nothing missing, but
So is
there's a feeling missing.
is that something we have within ourselves that's trying to like send us a message somehow?
I think what it is for most people is I think they're confused. Is I think they think something's missing. What's really going on is they have conflicting information that doesn't suit them. They can't
Yeah.
really be themselves because they haven't really been, they're pretending to be somebody they're not or acting like they're somebody else for so long. Of course, you're going to think there's something missing.
Mm.
What's missing is you're not being yourself. And why aren't you? Because a lot of people go, I don't think I can. Like, I mean, what will they say? What will they think? What will they do? Um, when people get into work with me, one of the fearful things is they're worried about how family and friends and children are going to react when they make changes. And I go,
Mm.
don't. I know why you're worried, but trust me, you can't screw up being yourself. Like
Do,
nothing's.
do you ever have people who say that they want to, if they're going to talk to you about this, that they want to kind of keep it, they don't want anyone to know that they're.
Yeah, let's just keep this between you and I, Doug.
And
Okay,
is that because it still has a stigma, or?
sure. Yeah, yeah. Well, the funny thing is they go between you and I, but I know I'm not the first between you and I conversation they've had.
Yeah.
So it's not really just between you and I. I
Right.
know they've somebody else between you and I.
Yeah.
Partially it's a stigmatism, but they're embarrassed. or they're ashamed,
Yeah.
or like my story, it's a pretty dark story, and I made a lot of mistakes, right? I'm very open about the mistakes that I made and where I went wrong, and I went very public with it, like on television and newspapers, right? And I found that was the key to freedom, was to just tell the story. And I realized, number one, I wasn't the only feeling the way I was feeling. I wasn't alone.
Mm.
And two, people actually still accepted me in spite of my flaws.
Mm.
So we've also been, conned into, and we've been told, like, sweep it under the rug.
Mm.
You mentioned suicide. Sorry, one sec, Paul. I gotta just make sure my phone doesn't ring here. You mentioned suicide. I'm a first year student at a university here in Ireland, and of course the school saying don't bring it up. They don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's stigmatism. I think, but primarily, I think it's more just you're kind of embarrassed or ashamed about your actions, your results, situation, or your past.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a good friend of mine who he's read your book, rather, Mistaken Identity. I know that looks back to front on the camera, but it's Mistaken Identity. And we've talked a lot because, I've told him how I've been on your course and everything. And if someone was to read your book, I mean, your experience that you had was, I mean, it's just horrendous. But you've always said to me, because I've asked you this before, and I've said, look, Doug, you know, you're coaching me, you're helping me with some stuff, but I didn't have anything like what you had. And I say, as I say, I've got this friend who he was adopted as well, and he said, oh, I didn't have any of that, but it still doesn't mean that you don't have programming that
Correct.
is kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody's immune. Like it's not like you have to go through these adverse experiences to be struggling with your identity.
Mm,
Like it's an epidemic, is what it is.
mm,
You're not immune. I mean, I would say like 1% of the people I meet, they're really clear on who they are. They like themselves. They're confident in themselves.
mm,
They don't worry too much about anything. They just kind of know who they are. They know where they're going.
mm,
And get busy. They get busy doing it.
mm,
The other percentage that makes it look easy, like I was making it look easy, but internally it was hard. You know.
mm,
So no, nobody's immune. Like I believe everybody has a mistaken identity in some way, shape, or form. All you got to do is just look at your results in your life
mm.
relative to believe or what you'd like to be able to do, and then I just ask you how you're feeling. Tell me. I ask you a few questions about how you assess yourself, how you feel about yourself, how you evaluate yourself, your own self-esteem, your own self-worth, your own self-confidence. I just ask you a few questions around that.
Mm.
Or telling me a story about a situation, past or present. And just listening to that, it'll reveal all kinds of information about how you feel about yourself.
Mm. There's something I'm just trying to remember this, something you've said about, I find absolutely fascinating because at some point we need to look at the results we're having in our life to give us some clues that there are things that we need to kind of reset in our mind. But having said that, once we start to work on it, we also don't want to just keep focusing on the results, because it's almost like putting a plant in the ground and then digging it up all the time to see how it's going. So how do you get that balance right?
Well, in this interview yesterday in Sweden that I recorded, we had a great chat about this. We were talking a very similar question. So you want to look to your results and look at your circumference, right? Your environment, your surroundings, where you live, where you work, family, people, your job, all that. And that'll be a great indicator of kind of the way that you think and the way you view yourself, right? And then you also kind of look at your emotional state? Like what's the state of your kind of your emotional and nervous state as it relates to your results? And so your results are easily explained because all your results come from action. All your actions come from behaviors. All your behaviors spring from belief. And all your beliefs primarily are inherited. So what you want to do is you're not, people think we're dredging up the past here. No, but there is some data, some facts from when you were young, very young, and or teen, adolescent, young adult, etc. There is some information there that is evidence that demonstrates why you do what you do, why you believe what you believe, and why you're getting the results that you're getting.
Mm.
So yesterday said, so Doug, it's actually very external approach, not internal. I go, yeah, you don't want to go inside to figure out why you're having problems. You want to go external. In other words, gather some facts that happen that you experience. All right, those experiences form thoughts and emotions and beliefs and habitual ways of operating. Worrying, right? Always dredging up the past, judging, carrying around guilt, shame, getting frustrated. Like all frustration is your expectations aren't being met. So if you don't want to be frustrated, change your expectation. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's just a bunch of information from the past that will explain away everything you've ever done and the results you've gotten. That's the way to do it. Mm-hmm. It's not like counseling and therapy. I mean, I did that. And, I suppose it was definitely helpful at a certain point. It has its use. Mm. But that ain't going to change your behavior.
Mm. No.
And you might figure out your behavior. You might just figure out your feelings. Mm. I don't know.
Yeah, I can speak for experience myself because it was many years that I went for all sorts of things until I could, and then when I got to Bob and I met you, then the dots started to come together. So you've got this course that people can go